Well, welcome to Common Thread. Welcome to our weekly meditation. It's another self-examination week, so you'll need something to write with. You may want to pause and gather that up. And this year, even still, this pandemic is forcing us all to reckon with downtime. Now, I've heard quite a few times, and maybe you have too, that it turns out downtime is difficult for us. Rest, in general, often difficult. Now, we know we need to rest. We know our bodies and minds need to repair themselves. We need to rest in order to think clearly, think creatively, and yet we resist rest. We know it's crazy, but still. So that's when we know it's a good time for self-examination, when we're doing something doesn't quite make sense. Why would I resist something that is good for me? And what we see again and again, it's usually some story that we tell ourselves. And a common American story around rest is that we earn the right to rest. We have to do enough before we deserve to rest. Have to do enough before we allow ourselves to rest. Now, there are other anti-rest stories, but that's a good place to start. I haven't earned it, so I can't rest until I do. Now, we say that out loud, we know it's crazy. It's like saying I need to earn the air that I breathe, because rest is a need, it's not an earned commodity. But still, that story, it gets in there. So today, let's both examine the stories that we tell ourselves and set ourselves for a week examining our stories, our rest stories, or our rest resisting stories. Let's begin, as we do, quieting our bodies, quieting our minds, and let's pay attention to where we are right now. If you are sitting down or if you're lying down, if you're out for a walk, let's start by being mindful of where we are, and in particular, what we hear. What do you hear? Give your full attention to the sounds that are going on around you. Paying attention to, noticing the sounds that are going on around you. Also, notice the spaces that go on between the sounds. Full concentration on listening. We don't tend to think of mindful listening as resting, but it is, so let's rest and hear. Let's rest and listen. And when a thought comes, thoughts do that. As soon as you notice it, simply return to listening. Return to hearing the sounds that are right here, the sounds that are right now. Again, when thoughts come, see them, notice them, back to listening. Now, for our self-examining right now and then through the week, let's consider those stories that we tell ourselves about rest. There are a lot of ways that the earn our rest story shows up in our lives. I'll suggest a few. If one of them pings you, relevant in your life, maybe jot it down so that you can think on it, reflect on it today, but also through the week. Here's one of them. Resting is idleness, or resting is laziness. See if you can see that story at work on you. And if you can, pause, write it down. Or how about this one? I don't rest because of what people might think of me, other people. They might think that I'm lazy. They might think that I'm idle, might think badly of me. Maybe a boss, maybe a coworker, a team member, maybe a family member. Is that story at work in there? Write it down. If I rest, I'll let the team down. If I rest, I might not be needed. I might be replaced. Anything there for you? Everybody wants to fit in. Does that desire, the fitting in desire, does it create rest resistance? You ever feel guilty when you rest, or uncomfortable or nervous? And if so, why? What's the story that generates those feelings? And if one comes to mind, pause, jot them down. When you do rest, do you feel like hiding it or keeping it secret? Worried others might be jealous of you or judgmental of you? Let's take a few moments and explore feelings that come up around rest, and thoughts that come up, and the story behind those thoughts, those feelings. What do we believe? What do we think? What do we fear around rest? What are the stories? Maybe socially absorbed stories, maybe family of origin stories, and for some of us, personal experience stories. Take a moment. Go ahead and pause the recording for as long as you need. We're living in a moment of invitation right now. Post-pandemic, we are all being invited to recalibrate our relationship with rest. You might have heard a phrase being bandied about recently that rest is resistance. Rest goes against the tide of a long-standing cultural imbalance. And so, indwelling divine, may we find our way beyond our culturally inherited blind spots, like earning our rest, or secreting it away, or not feeling permission to rest when we are tired, feeling bad about rest. May we find our way beyond that. Amen. Well, this week, that'll be our focus together. I hope you'll set a reminder. I hope you'll be observing, how do you relate to rest? Do you resist it? And if so, why do you resist it? And how do you resist it? When you are resisting it, how are you doing it? I'm going to be posting my stories in the chat group. I hope you will too. What I'm really hoping is that we can help each other recalibrate our relationship with rest. So, grow this week, and I'll see you next week.